recording, so maybe pause the recording. Join us. Before we get started, I want to make sure we're recording. It looks like we are. I appreciate your patience as we navigate any technology issues that might come up today. Typically, we do these meetings face-to-face if you've been in any of them before. And of course, commission members you have, we're typically in Thomas Jefferson. So this one's a little different than normal, but I'm just so grateful that y'all are all able to join us today. You know, as we're starting, I know we're all kind of doing this from home and things might be a little more hectic than we're used to. So I understand, I'm sure everyone on this meeting has dealt with some sort of craziness through all of this. If I randomly mute, I do have a house full of children and a cat is actually sitting in my lap right now. So we'll all have a lot of grace with one another as we navigate this new world. So let's go ahead and get started. So this is our agenda for today, and we did send this to you guys in advance. We'll start with the welcome, of course. We will do a roll call as we typically do when we're starting these meetings. Then we'll do an approval of minutes from our last meeting, which seems like forever ago, but believe it or not, was just in December. And then we have a topic, we're going to consider the on-site review framework, and we have a guest speaker who's going to talk to us about that. And then we're going to talk through some updates, and we also have a guest speaker who's going to join us for a portion of that section of the agenda. And then we'll have time for public comments and adjournment. In terms of the public comments, if anyone who is on would like to give a public comment, please send your public comments to classroomsupporttoolbox@la.gov. Marcy, if you can put that email address in the chat, I'm probably already doing that, just in case anyone wants to send a public comment. And at the end of the meeting, Marcy and Lori will let me know if we have any public comments that have come in, and I'll be able to share those with everyone. Other than that, let me go ahead and advance to the next slide. And again, in case some people aren't able to be at their computer, I'm going to voice over these slides a little more than usual. So I apologize in advance. I know that can be a little bit annoying, but I also know sometimes people are on small devices or only call in, and so that might be needed. So let's get started with a roll call. Lori is going to lead us through that like she typically does. I'm going to mute for her to and as she goes through the roll, I do want to say I've had at least one person who let me know they were going to be joining us a little late. I know with this virtual kind of format, all of our calendars have gotten scheduled back to back. So if anything runs over, it makes life even more complicated in some ways. So, we will have at least one member joining us a little late. But I'll go ahead and mute it. Lori, can you walk us through the roll call, please?
Sure. Can you hear me, Chanda?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, great. Crystal Aguilar. Melissa Anders.
Present.
Jennifer Barnes.
Present.
Kim Canizero.
Present.
Susanna Craig.
Here.
Zenobia Curtis. Holly D'Amico.
Present.
Tori Flint.
Present.
Carolyn Gore.
Present.
Deborah Jo Haley.
Present.
Gwen Hamilton.
Here.
Richard Hartley. Dana Hunter. Chanda Johnson.
Here.
Dejanay Clark Jackson.
Here.
Arthur Joffrion.
Here.
Elena Magnum.
Here.
Kim McAllister.
Present.
Brandy McNabb.
Here.
Larkin Page.
Present.
Dana Perilou.
Present.
Beth Sino. Libby Sonia Neto.
Here.
John Weibel. We have a quorum. I want to go back and just make sure those that were not here, I just want to call roll again to make sure everybody was muted or unmuted properly. Crystal Aguilar. Zenobia Curtis, Richard Hartley, Dana Hunter, Beth Sino, John Weibel. Okay.
Thanks, Lori. And so I will also apologize in advance. As you guys probably remember from the December meeting, I struggled to like follow all of these rules of what I'm supposed to say at what point. So if at any point Lori or Ryan stop me and correct me, I'm sure that will not surprise you guys at all. So the next thing that we need to do, and this is not actually in the agenda, but we need to do a certification for lack of quorum. And so I'm going to read a statement for you guys to make sure we all hear. So in accordance with Executive Proclamation JBE 2020-59, issued by Governor John Bel Edwards on May 14th, 2020, the Louisiana Department of Education is providing for attendance at essential meetings via teleconference or video conference as allowed during the pendency of the COVID-19 health emergency. Pursuant to Section 2C of JBE 2020-59, the LDOE will provide attendance for the Early Literacy Commission meeting on Thursday, May 28, 2020 via Zoom and in a manner that allows for observation and input by members of the public as set forth in the notice posted on May 26, 2020. The Early Literacy Commission would otherwise be unable to operate due to quorum requirements. Okay, so we got that done. The next thing that we have is our approval of minutes. And so I'm going to ask everyone to review the minutes of the 12/16/19 meeting. And Lori sent those to you via email before this meeting. And I'll give you all about like 30 seconds or so to review. And then I'll mute, and then I'll come back and ask for a motion and a second to approve the minutes of that meeting. But I'm gonna mute and allow y'all time to go over that. Okay, I'm gonna unmute. Wait time was never my specialty, but that felt close to the 30 seconds, I promise. So now I'm gonna ask for a motion to approve the minutes of the 12/16/19 ELC meeting.
Shanda, there's one, this is Libby. My last name was misspelled in the list of attendees. Instead of a R, it has a T on Sonia.
Oh, that's weird. Okay, thank you for flagging. We'll make that correction. I apologize. Okay, so with that correction, do we have a motion to approve?
This is Libby. I move to approve.
Thank you. And do I have a second?
I'll second. Susanna.
Thank you. Okay, awesome. So we've approved the minutes. A few norms. If I know we have some members of the public that have joined. I already mentioned if you can mute, and then if you have a public comment that you would like to share with us, if you can send them to that email address in the chat box, classroomsupporttoolbox@la.gov. For all of the members, I know it's easy when we're all together, like we just are able easily to take turns talking. Sometimes that can be a little tricky in a virtual environment. So when I'm not talking, I know I'm gonna go on mute. So, and everybody's already doing that. And sometimes I see like faces going to mute because people are like looking to try to talk and find the mute button at the same time. So we're gonna just give each other time to unmute. If you're trying to unmute and struggling, If you just type in the chat box, hey, I'd like to talk, I'm going to keep an eye on the chat box, as is Lori and as is Marcy. So we'll probably have to be a little more patient than normal with one another just because of the technology. But at any point, if you feel frustrated or if there's anything that I can do, feel free to let me know, and we'll make sure. We can also use the hand raising feature if you'd like. But I think as long as all of us are muted and then unmute, it might take a little longer. Okay, so let's hop on in. So as I mentioned, it feels like it's been a while, but also yesterday we were all together. So of course we were all together in December for our last meeting. Since that meeting, I'm very excited. Your report has been published, and I have a screenshot of the cover here. And so just so excited. Of course, we were informed by, and someone is trying to join, let me let them in. The Early Literacy Commission was established, and I have both the Senate resolution and the House resolution here on your screen for you to see. Again, I'm voicing over for people who can't see. And again, it was established in order to study and make recommendations for developing and implementing an aligned system to provide effective evidence-based reading instruction for children from birth through 3rd grade. And so I know you guys are all aware of that. You've been deeply involved in this work. So as I mentioned, your report was submitted in January. In that report, you recommended a significant increase in the types and training and support available to reading teachers, and an annual state investment of $15 million to carry out those efforts. And again, there's a screenshot of your report here for those of you not able to see it right now. But kudos to you guys. I know every single committee put a lot of time and effort into this and into this report. And it was truly a labor of love for all of you. I know how much you all deeply care that our students in Louisiana learn to read. And I'm just so proud of the work that you guys have done so far. So this is where we are now, what we've done so far. And so today we're going to be looking towards year 2. And in the report, you guys called out some of the things that you wanted to make sure that you were updated on. I had originally sent you guys a list of meetings. Maybe that was in February. It might have been in January. The months are blurring together at this point. Unfortunately, due to COVID-19, we've had to delay a few meetings, so our schedule is a little off. But I want to make sure that we're frequently able to get together. So we're likely to meet like every other month or even every month. They're probably going to seem to come pretty quickly because we missed those couple of months that we weren't able to meet. So, so we'll all be spending lots of time together in the coming months, which I think is pretty exciting. So in your report, there were 3 key areas for year 2 that you guys said you wanted to receive updates on as we all are working towards our next report that's going to be due next January. And so again, those kind of buckets they fell into. The first one was instructional materials and intervention materials. The second one was teacher prep and professional growth. And then the third was progress monitoring and communication. So at each of these meetings throughout the year, I'll bring you updates. I'll invite some of my colleagues from the department to come bring updates. And so about each of these as we go.
Chanda, you're muted.
That was super weird. I don't know how I got muted. I didn't mute myself. Thank you, Marcy. How long have I been talking muted? Not long?
I think when you switch to this slide.
Oh, that is so weird. Okay. I appreciate that. So as I mentioned, the Early Literacy Commission released their report in January with a list of recommendations and then areas that we were going to study in the future. So I'm excited that today we have a guest who's come who, of course, read the report, was excited by it, and wants to share something with us and some work that was a response to the work that you guys put into this report. So I'm excited that she's here with us today. Sarah, were you able to join?
Yep. Good afternoon. I'm here.
Okay, so Sarah, I am going to try to let you share your screen. Or Marcy, should you do that? I don't know how to do that best.
Yeah, let me try to do that.
Okay.
And while we're working through that, if you can go ahead and advance to the next slide, Chanda, and we can start from there. So good afternoon, everyone. My name is Sarah Delano. I work in the Office of Academic Strategy with the Department of Education. In my work at the department, I work very closely with teacher preparation providers across the state. One thing that our office oversees is an accountability system for teacher preparation providers. There are federal regulations that require each state to have an accountability system for teacher preparation providers. Louisiana's first accountability system was in the early 2000s, and I think it was in 2016, as a state, we decided that it would be helpful to make some updates to that first iteration of the accountability system. And so we brought together a teacher preparation accountability work group that developed recommendations for this new accountability system. In this new accountability system that the board approved in the summer of 2017, one of the key areas of focus is that the accountability work group thought it was incredibly important for this new system to give actionable feedback to teacher preparation providers around the preparation experiences they're offering to candidates across the state. Another key piece of this new accountability system is it was important to the accountability work group that the accountability system has the same standards for all teacher preparation providers across the state. As some of you may know, we in Louisiana actually have 28 institutions that prepare teachers across our state. We have a number of universities that do that. We have some school systems that do that. A few nonprofit providers, a few private providers. And so when the board approved this system in 2017, as I mentioned, a key piece of this is that the hope is that the system will provide actionable feedback to preparation providers. The key way that this is done is that there is an on-site review process whereby a group of external reviewers go to each teacher preparation providers. They do a deep dive into the experience, the preparation experience that each provider gives. And then at the end of the week that they're there, they provide a culminating report that provides information to preparation providers around areas of strength and areas for improvement. This on-site review process has been piloted in our state since 2014. The process is predicated upon an on-site review framework, and this on-site review framework identifies the domains and the specific criteria around which teacher preparation providers will receive feedback. And so, as I said, this was piloted beginning in 2014-15. Actually, starting last year, we determined that we needed to make some revisions to this on-site review framework to streamline it and to ensure that it is measuring what matters most. And so the way we approached this is we had an on-site review work group that met starting last May. We had actually two different work groups that met for about a year to make revisions and updates to the framework. Within this process, we invited every teacher preparation provider in the state to participate in that first work group. We also had Dr. Susanna Craig from the Board of Regents participate. Ms. Shan Davis from Bessie participated as well. So based upon the feedback from that work group and then a second smaller work group that came together beginning in the winter, we now have an updated framework that we would like to share with you. So one of the things that Chanda mentioned is as we were in the process of updating this framework and we reviewed the report from the Early Literacy Commission, we thought it was very important to make sure that in the second domain that measures the quality of content knowledge and teaching methods, that we took a very close look at that criteria to ensure that the criteria within that domain were closely aligned to your recommendations. I'm going to now see, I believe I can share my screen. I'm just going to pull up quickly the recommendation that we were looking at from the report, just so we all have that in front of us. Let's see if I have it here. So I think you all can see, can you see my screen? Okay, great. So the specific recommendation that we were looking at is this recommendation around teacher preparation and professional growth, around revising the process to ensure that literacy coursework in pre-K to 5 includes the foundations of reading, so that to make sure that it includes phonological awareness, phonics and fluency, and language and literacy, comprehension and vocabulary, and writing. And so in looking at this specific recommendation, what I'm going to do now is actually pull up the on-site review framework that you all received, so we can talk through the specific section that relates to that recommendation. Give me just a half a second. Okay. So we have here the domain 2, which is the quality of content knowledge and teaching methods. So before I get into the specifics, actually, I do want to just make sure I provide a bit more information about the way this on-site review process works. So I mentioned that with this process, there's a group of external reviewers who come in, and during the week that they are with each preparation provider, their goal is to come away with a very clear understanding of the preparation experiences provided by that institution, and then to provide a report that gives them actionable feedback around areas of strength and areas to improve. As they are going through this process, it is a holistic process that includes the review of multiple sources of evidence. And so with this process, and I'll show you here some of the sources of evidence for this particular domain, what the reviewers are doing is they're actually going in, they are observing the coursework that the teacher preparation provider offers. They are observing the candidates in their teaching residencies, observing the observation and feedback sessions with clinical faculty, reviewing syllabi, interviewing program completers, principals, interviewing faculty to try to come away with a holistic understanding of the program. And so as they are doing this and triangulating the evidence, one of the key areas of feedback that they're focused on is content knowledge and teaching methods. And so what you'll see here is that in light of the recommendations that you all provided, what we tried to do was just mirror your recommendation as closely as possible in the framework. So you'll see that the very first indicator in the second domain, reviewers are asking the question, to what extent does the preparation provider prepare candidates to teach students to write and to read, utilizing the 5 essential components of reading instruction. And then the criteria are listed below, and the first one is this coverage of writing and of the 5 essential components. So we have it outlined here. I'm going to pause for just a minute because I know that I've really talked for a long time and given a lot of context. I would appreciate maybe Dr. Craig, I know that you were an integral member of our on-site review work group, and as you're also a member of this commission, I would just ask if there's any other context or anything else that you would add that you think would be helpful for the commission to hear.
Sure. Thanks, Sarah. Just to add that this has been a very lengthy process that we've gone through working to get this, this framework where it needs to be. And we have actually 2 different groups working on this methodology, and in all phases of this process, we had representative from teacher preparation programs helping to make the decisions and to develop this framework. So I just wanted to let you know that that teacher preparation programs were involved in the development of these documents. I'm really thankful that as the department was making changes to this framework, that they did take into account the recommendations from this commission. It really dovetailed together at the right time. We were making some edits to the framework at the same time the recommendations of this commission were coming out, and I applaud Sarah and her team for taking the recommendations of this commission and immediately putting them into action. So I think that's all I've got, Sarah, unless you think there's anything else I should add. But I really I appreciate the fact that you were able to mirror the recommendations of the Early Literacy Commission.
Thanks so much, Dr. Craig. And I think, the last thing that I'll say is that we were really excited to see your recommendations. I think we all know just how incredibly important literacy instruction is. And, I think the other thing that we think so much about is just the fact that we know that most teachers who work in Louisiana were trained in Louisiana, and we know that that the work that all of you are doing specifically in universities around preparing teachers is incredibly important. And so we've so appreciated your partnership over this last year. As Susanna said, we had quite a few meetings. You all provided incredibly helpful feedback, and I know it was time consuming, so we very much appreciate it. Based upon the recommendation from the Early Literacy Commission that we include this, criteria around scientifically based reading instruction. So my purpose today is, one, we wanted to make sure that you all knew that this recommendation has been included. Secondly, our hope is that you all would endorse a part of this framework. This framework is broad in that it provides feedback to preparation providers across multiple areas. And so our specific ask is for an endorsement of this, criteria that is based upon the recommendation that you all submitted. So I think with that, Chanda, I'll turn it over to you because I don't know what the official process is. And also, I'm not sure if members have questions.
Yeah, so thank you. I only know the process because I made them write it down on paper for me because I am that good at the process. So, so I am going to ask for a motion and a second to open discussion of the on-site review framework.
Chanda, Arthur Joe Freon, I'd like to make a motion that we move forward with discussion.
Perfect. And do I have a second?
Dejanay, second.
Perfect. Thank you. Y'all are so good at that. Okay. So again, Sarah, thank you for framing that. And Dr. Jofrian, I know you had a comment in the chat. Would you like to voice that over for the group as we're starting our discussion? And then I see Tori also has some comments, but if I'm doing them in order, Dr. Jofrian, would you like to start?
Sure. I don't mind doing that at all. Sarah, a huge thank you to you and this work group for really getting feedback from stakeholders. I think that is why you see such a quality framework being presented to us. Dr. Craig and Sarah know that I serve on the LSU Council, the Education Department Council, and Sarah, as well as others, came and presented some information, and you can see such improvement in that work and that process. And I also think that this adds such validity to the work of our commission. We have worked diligently to provide recommendations, and having Sarah be able to speak so fluently and have our universities also have a buy-in to the work that this commission has done just speaks volumes. That collaboration piece is great. So I hope that everyone on our commission, if you've got questions, please ask for clarity. Sarah is here. Dr. Craig, who serves on both of the commissions, can answer the questions. But I hope that we move forward in endorsing this framework.
Thank you so much. Oh, I'm sorry. I don't know, Chanda, thank you for those comments. We appreciate them. I don't know if I'm supposed to say that or not, or if I'm deferring to you, Chanda.
We're pretty informal.
Okay.
Good informality, but no, thank you very much. So Tori, I think you had some questions.
I do. In the report, the little section that you just showed, I just want to bring up that a key edit that happened in our meeting on that report was the word includes, and not to solely focus on the big five of reading. We made sure, and everybody voted and agreed that the word was includes, because we didn't want it to exclude all other strategies for teaching reading and literacy. But the framework here, it really just does focus on those big five. And some of the language, which I voiced to you and Chanda yesterday, I find really kind of problematic. First of all, comprehensive coverage of the 5 essential components of reading, that needs to either be defined because it's pretty subjective. Like, what does comprehensive mean to you, and what does it mean to me as a teacher prep educator? And then also in level 2 and level 1, where you say literacy courses and training are somewhat consistent with current research or are inconsistent with current research along the line of those big five, I think that language is problematic when you're saying it's inconsistent with current research unless you're solely focusing on those big five. I find that to be very, very problematic. And I think I sent over some suggestions to Chanda. I never heard back anything about them, if anyone looked at them or discussed them, but I think we need to edit this framework. So I wanted to know if taking the time to edit before we have a vote of endorsing is a possibility.
Thanks, Tori. And I do think it would probably be helpful if we could hear from anyone who wants to speak from the commission, and then decide as a group if we think as it is it's good to go, or if we think that we should vote to endorse as is and then suggest some edits. So I think I do want to make sure that everybody has a chance to speak. I know we've heard from a couple of people.
Yeah, may I, Chanda, may I respond to Tori's feedback?
Yes.
Okay, so first, Tori, thank you for your feedback. I appreciate it. I have 2 initial comments, and then, I think that Dr. Craig, also we have Dr. McAllister here. Both of them were on the on-site review work groups. And so if you all have additional comments, I would really appreciate it if you could weigh in as well. So the first point that you're raising around the fact that the framework is really focused exclusively on the 5 components of evidence-based, reading instruction. The first thing that I'll say about this is, as the on-site review work group was meeting, one of the big areas of focus for this group was to determine what are the key areas where preparation providers most need feedback. And so we absolutely understand that with this framework, it is not possible to provide feedback on every component of a teacher preparation program. The work that you all do is so complex, and trying to have a review that gives feedback on everything is just not possible. And so in light of that, over the last year, the on-site review work group really focused on what are the areas that would be most helpful for them to get feedback on. Those are the areas that are included in the framework. That does not mean, by any stretch of the imagination, that this then means that this is the only thing that a teacher preparation program does. We know that that's not the case. These are the areas that were included based upon feedback from that work group. The second point that you raised around, this question around what exactly does comprehensive mean? I think that's also an important one. And this is something that the on-site review work group also discussed extensively. And I think in the development of this framework, there's this tension between ensuring that we have a framework that is usable and also ensuring that there is a place where everybody is incredibly clear on the definitions. And so what the on-site review work group determined is that it makes the most sense to have a framework that is as clear and streamlined as possible. The vendor who is conducting the on-site reviews is going to create a companion document once this framework is finalized that is going to provide that level of clarity around when you say comprehensive, for example, like what exactly does that mean? So I wanted to say that, and then I would also ask, I think especially, Dr. McAllister, you were co-leading this when we were having these conversations about streamlining. So if there's anything you would add, or also Dr. Craig, I would appreciate that as well.
Kim, you first.
Okay. Well, one, I really appreciate folks taking the time to look at this very large document because I think it's important for us to be careful on the literacy task force. I don't want to speak for anyone, but for them to give an endorsement of the entire framework when really what we're talking about is domain 2, element 1. And so I think perhaps we should look at our either endorsement or an acknowledgement of an alignment of the recommendations of this task force with the recommendations of the rubric, the framework for on-site review. I think personally, and I served on both both groups, if I did not have that other experience, I would be very reticent to say I'm endorsing this very large, broad, 4-domain, multiple indicators when we want to focus really on that one domain, one indicator to say that that is aligned. And so I would make that recommendation. And then to say to Tori, to respond to her comments about the criteria about comprehensive and what does that mean. Please know that that teacher prep really worked long and hard with our colleagues at the Board of Regents and the Department of Ed to have that companion document. And we believe it's critical in order for everyone to be clear of expectations and to be able to plan accordingly to where they want to be. But that has always been part of that plan.
Okay. And Dr. Craig, did you want to respond as well?
I think the only thing that I would add is our decision today is to endorse or not to endorse, right? This document was created by a different set of people, and this is and they have landed on the language that's in this document. And so I think it's our choice to and I think Kim's right. I think Dr. McAllister's right. We're only talking about one very small piece of this entire framework that happens to be aligned with the work that we're doing with this commission. So I don't really know how that should play out, Chanda or Sarah, in what this might look like if the commission so chose to endorse.
Can I just ask a quick question? Is our only option either to endorse or not endorse, or is there an option to give feedback so that this can be edited and have another vote to endorse later after it's edited?
Sarah, I don't know where we are in the process already, if it's already been adopted by the board or not sure.
This is the final version that the on-site review work group has agreed to. And so at this point in time, the option would be to endorse or not to endorse.
And for me, when I think about, and if I wasn't on this commission at all, if I saw an early literacy commission endorsing a rubric that talked about a bunch of stuff, I would assume that they were endorsing the part that was about literacy. So I guess that that was my take when I read it, but I get your point, Kim, that that one part is about the early literacy. So for me, I feel like if we vote to endorse, we're saying we agree with their approach to early literacy because people know that that's our area of expertise. But I think we should continue to have a conversation about how as a group we feel about that. I do want, we have several people who have asked to speak, and we can all talk more than once, of course. Ms. Gwen was the first, and she said that she understood that this is a broad framework. However, can you explain how reading instruction training for children with disabilities like dyslexia is included? So, Ms. Gwen, my answer to that would be that by making sure that there's this comprehensive coverage of these 5 components plus writing, that type of systematic reading instruction is the type of reading instruction that students with disabilities or students with dyslexia need in order to be able to learn to read. So while they don't specifically call out dyslexia, when I read that particular component, for me, I see clearly that they understand that we need to meet the needs of those students, even though they're not specifically named. So that was my take.
I'm sorry, can you, which component are you speaking to specifically? I'm having trouble reading.
I know, that's the
document.
thing about these online meetings, it's hard. It's indicator, I think our component 2.1. So it's the one that reads almost exactly like our recommendation from the report. I don't remember the exact words, but there's coverage of the 5 essential components and writing. So while you're reviewing, Ms. Gwen, and I'm happy to come back to you. Ms. Mangum, you had asked to speak next.
Hi, everybody. Yes, I just want to say again, appreciate Sarah and the department's all of this work, and kind of piggybacking off of what Dr. Jofrion said, that I'm ready to endorse. It's amazing that the initiative was already taken into effect prior, before we didn't have to come and reach to you guys. You guys took our report, and it is mimicking what we're doing based on the recommendations that are best for all students to learn how to read. And we know it starts at the teacher level, and which then starts at our higher ed. And Ms. Glenn, I was thinking when you asked that question, as a former classroom teacher and former district level staff that worked over dyslexia and dibbles and all of that in Rapides Parish, and also knowing that majority of students with dyslexia, the deficits are in that phonological processor, that when we were able to give training and support teachers in those foundation pieces, when they got into the classroom or came across maybe a student, a child that had a deficit, they were able to have a better understanding, and then were able to deepen their knowledge with support from their special ed department or ed diagnosticians. But I don't want to say I think it's a conversation I've had a few days ago. If we're training our educators when they're in school with these components of early literacy, we're going to have a better shot at addressing those deficits with those children in dyslexia, instead of trying to later on say, hey, we need dyslexia training. If we can get this in their heads and their brains, before they even get into a classroom, we are a step ahead of the game for those kiddos. But again, kudos to the work that's been done. It is aligning to our report. Couldn't ask for anything better. And so in regards to this particular domain, it is great and ready to endorse.
Okay, thank you. I think our next person up is Ms. Libby.
Thanks so much. So I was just curious, in the rubric on the evidence piece, that not included were syllabi, faculty interviews, teacher candidate interviews, observation of teacher surveys of individuals who've completed the program, and potential employers. Just why that perhaps wasn't included in that evidence for the rubric? Is that something that is included somewhere else?
Yeah, so
in-
that, yeah, I'm sorry. Maybe let me see if I can pull it up again. So everything that you just mentioned is included as part of the on-site review process. And I tried to show the page that includes the potential evidence bases. Let me see if I can.
What it says is, in what we were sent, the possible sources of evidence, it just says handbooks, policy, protocols, interview with program staff, written plans for strategic recruitment efforts, demographic data, those kinds of things, and K-12 student outcomes. So it's not as explicit as what I just stated. And so I'm just wondering if that's just a caveat, or did y'all just add this? Because this wasn't.
So yeah, so the information, you know, about this, the syllabi, the observations of candidates teaching, the interviews, that's all on page 5.
Okay, so that wasn't included in what we received, is what I'm. So if it's there,
okay,
then that's helpful to know. That I appreciate that, because it wasn't in what we received.
Okay.
Or I missed it, one of the two.
Okay,
so.
got it. So, sorry about that. Yeah,
No
so
problem.
we do have you know, different sources of evidence listed for each domain, and so the one for domain 2 is on page 5.
Okay, thank you.
Perfect. And my chat disappeared. Hold on, let me pull it back. You gotta love technology. Okay, the next person who asked, oh, my whole screen just changed. And I lost where I was. Okay, next, I think, Kim, I think we spoke to you since your comment was here. So Dr. Page, I think you're next.
Hey guys, as you know, I am the reading professor at Xavier, and I actually oversee the state accreditation of our division for teacher preparation programs. I am gonna just talk a little bit about a couple of things that I'm just like, I want us to kind of rethink these or think about them a little bit more. I am, in total respect, going to disagree, because our program went through this accreditation in 2018 and 2019, and as I said, I was in charge of it, and I'm also the reading and literacy professor, so I got the double whammy. This is not a small piece of that evaluation. This is a big piece, and if those who aren't involved in teacher prep programs, you know, accreditation, it's the area, to be very blunt, that they address the most, good or bad. Here's the deal, I'll be very blunt with you. I learned from 2018 to 2019 what they were looking for. And it's what I do, but what I did is I made it very, very specific in my syllabi. So when they came the second time, everything was good with reading and literacy. And I will say this, they focused on the 5 components plus writing. But they didn't let it be just this sole focus, which I did appreciate. Because as we all know, reading and literacy is not just those 6 things. Now here's the deal. I am a huge advocate, and you can look at my syllabi. I'm doing everything that this rubric wants. But it also, though, this rubric limits other things. And yes, these accreditation people are with us for a week. Monday, they're getting ready. Friday, they're wrapping up. So really, they're with us 3 weeks. I mean, 3 days, excuse me. And they come and observe courses. They observe me several times for 45 minutes each time. What they're really looking at to see if you're covering it is the syllabi. And I get that. I get that, because they can't do everything in 3 days. But what this rubric is doing is really narrowing. If they don't see it in that 45 minutes, then we're in trouble at university level programs. Another big question for me is, are other programs that are not university-based teacher prep programs, are they evaluated on the same rubric? That's very important to me because we as university programs don't certify every teacher. There are tons of programs here in New Orleans with me that are not university based. So it's things like that that concern me. And it's just, I don't know, I want us to think long and hard about it. And even, okay, so even I'm gonna read this. The indicator 2.1, to what extent does the provider prepare candidates to teach students to write and read utilizing the 5 essential components of reading instruction? Well, that's not written in the best way, because writing should stand alone from those 5, which is what you're indicating in level 4 and 3 and 2, but the indicator doesn't explicitly say that. So to me, there's a mismatch right there. I do appreciate the work that has been done. And here's the deal. We want the very best teachers we can have. But we need to, as I've said before, not just point our finger at teacher prep programs that are university based. We need to ensure that we're looking at all programs that certify teachers. Because here's the situation, and I've told Shanda this before. University-based teacher prep programs are the Department of Education's biggest cheerleaders. Because guess what? We're doing what we're supposed to be doing. We all that teach those courses have doctorates in reading or curriculum instruction with an emphasis in reading. So we're doing it. My biggest concern is when you get so focused on just specific things without looking globally at it. And, I'll be honest with you, I've already talked to class measures because, as I said, I oversee the accreditation program, and we go through the accreditation program in March of next year. So I'm already communicating with classroom measures, which is the new version of the accreditation, because TPI US used to do it. What I'm concerned about is it just going to penalize us because we have such a narrow focus on that rubric? I don't know, it's something to think about. And you've been very patient because that was a long comment. Thank you, Shanna.
Oh, no, totally fine. Sarah, can you clarify for us if the rubric is used for both our university and non-university programs? Because I know not everyone is as familiar with this process as Dr. Page.
Yes, so that when the new iteration of the accountability system was being developed, that was one of the key priorities, is that this system apply equally to all providers. So every teacher preparation provider goes through the same on-site review process using the same framework.
And can you clarify, there was a pilot phase and then a not pilot phase. So can you clarify that for us as well?
Yeah, definitely. So the on-site review has been piloted in our state since 2014. So it was starting in 2014-15 that on-site reviews first happened. So we did pilots in 14-15, 15-16, and 16-17, so for 3 years. After that 3-year pilot phase, it was then in June of 2017 that the board approved the teacher preparation accountability system, which includes the on-site review process. The teacher preparation accountability system is being phased in over a 5-year period. 17-18 was a research phase. 1819 and 1920 were a learning phase. So during the learning phase, every teacher preparation provider participated in an on-site review. Coming up in this academic year, so 2020-21, 21-22, is the first of the first accountability cycle.
Perfect, thank you. So I'm gonna go through the comments. And I apologize if I was a little distracted during the last section. We had someone disconnected and a problem seeing the interpreter, so I apologize. So Dr. Joffrion agreed with Dr. Page that all teacher prep programs should be held accountable. I see another comment from Ms. Mangum. Dr. Page, what areas do you feel is missing when teaching reading?
Think about this, read alouds, situations such as guided reading, because guided reading intervention type strategies can move beyond just the 5 and writing. Think in terms of how we do independent reading. Is independent reading just going to be focused on those 5 plus writing? And once again, I want to stress, guys, I'm 1000% in agreement that these 6 things are important and they should not be ignored, period. The idea of it is, though, I'm concerned about the narrow scope of it, that it doesn't include other things that we teach teachers, and I've been a teacher, and now I'm a professor, the things that we teach teachers to do out in the field, because what's going to happen is they're faced with other instructional techniques and other instructional strategies and other instructional activities that move beyond those 6 things, which I call the big 6. You know me, Shanda's gonna kill me because I always add in that writing. So hopefully that helps. And please, and guys, I appreciate the work thus far. I truly do. It's just, it does concern me just a little bit about that narrow focus.
Okay, thank you. And Dejanay said, does this document not give just the minimum requirement and not consider the only things that should be covered? Sarah, I think, can you answer that question for us? Can you clarify?
Would you actually, I'm not quite sure if I understand your question. Would you mind clarifying for us?
Yes, no problem. Sorry, I was typing fast. I was speaking to sort of to Dr. Page's concern about looking at things more globally. So is this document not, isn't this document meant to sort of give the framework of the minimum that should be covered and not necessarily all the things that, the only things that should be covered by these teacher prep programs? So I'm just asking for clarification.
Yeah, that's absolutely right. And so the way this is set out, and again, kind of as I mentioned at the beginning, we know that the work of preparing teachers is incredibly complicated. It is not possible within this on-site review process to give feedback to teacher preparation providers regarding every single aspect of their work. It's not feasible. And so in light of that, what the 2 on-site review work groups did over the past year was had very deep discussions about what matters most in terms of preparing teachers and how can we streamline the framework so that teacher preparation providers are getting actionable feedback only around those areas.
Hey, Sarah, and I agree with you 1000%. I get what you're saying, because the rubric would be, 9 pages long. But on that rubric, when it's that narrow focus, that is all they're looking for. And that shows that's all that we as a state are interested in. And that's all they're going to look for.
Yeah, so one of the things, and I think it's a little bit tricky within this conversation because I know that we're really only focused on the literacy component. And so, what I would say with this is you're right. 2.1 is looking at the extent to which teacher preparation candidates are being prepared to teach using the 5 essential components of reading. It is narrowly focused on that. The way that the on-site review provides feedback around the other components that are aligned to our student standards and to our teacher preparation competencies, that is addressed in indicator 2.2. And so that piece is in there around, again, the extent to which the program is addressing student standards. I don't really know the extent to which we should discuss that within the auspices of this conversation, because I know that we are trying to be very, very focused on the literacy component, and indicator 2.2 gets into the teacher preparation competencies across all programs.
Thanks, Sarah. And I had missed a question from Ms. Jackson. Yes, how does this framework rubric complement or affect the preparation competencies put forth by LDOE for initial certifications?
Yeah, so again, the way this addresses that is in indicator 2.2, and what that's looking at is the extent to which teacher preparation providers are preparing candidates and the student standards. The teacher preparation competencies are fully aligned to our K-12 student standards.
Okay, thank you. So a couple of comments, and I'll read through these and then give like a final pause in case anyone has any other comments or questions. Dr. Joffrion reminded us that school systems also have accountability to support teachers. We cannot only rely on teacher prep. Ongoing PD and the teaching of reading is critical. Totally agree, Dr. Joffrion. We'll definitely be revisiting that topic a bunch in upcoming meetings. Dr. Gore, it seems to me that a framework is general as long as the 5 components plus writing are taught. Other strategies are okay to include. It would also be interesting to see how effective the teacher candidates are in the classroom. Are students able to read and perform well enough to move through the grade successfully? And that's a question, but Ms. Carolyn, it feels like a rhetorical question, so I'll keep moving, but stop me if you would like to speak. And then Jennifer expressed, she said, I have a concern, would like clarification. So Sarah, this will be for you. She said, this may be similar to Gwen's comment with students with disabilities. I am a teacher for the deaf. Most of our students are language deprived because they do not have access to language at home. So they have lower reading skills than most of their hearing peers. So with this framework, how will this affect the deaf education teachers? So it sounds like probably that is similar to Ms. Gwen's comment where the instructional elements are the same. Of course, teachers of the deaf have the special training that it takes to do that type of instruction. And I think to Dr. Joffrion's point, I think some of that instruction is ongoing. Some of that PD is ongoing with your school. But Sarah, is there anything you would add to that?
No, I think that's right, Chanda. I think that it's similar, as you said, with the comment around, students with dyslexia.
Okay. Thank you very much. So I know we've had a lot of comments. Thank you guys for, I think we've done pretty good. We're used to being all in one room where it's a little bit easier, but thank you for taking turns as we muted and unmuted and using the chat. I think I've read all the chats. And again, I read through those just in case some people weren't at their computer. And I appreciate those who have been texting me that I missed your chat along the way. I really appreciate that. Does anyone else have any lingering questions or comments before we move to see if we have a motion?
This is Dejanay.
Shanda? Okay.
Go ahead, Ms. Gwen.
So just to go back to where we started, I'm the non-educator in this group, so my question may not be relevant. But what we're being asked to do, and our recommendation I heard earlier, is that we have been requested by Bessie to adopt the portion of this framework that relates specifically to the recommendations of the commission. And someone defined that as domain 2. Is that correct?
So great question. So this isn't coming from Bessie, just as a point of clarification.
Sorry, say that again.
This isn't coming from Bessie.
Okay.
So I think we do have a Bessie member who was able to join us today, which Miss Holly was on. I don't know if she's still on. But this on-site review framework, our academic strategy team has worked with our teacher prep providers, lots of different people that Sarah talked us through earlier. And what they're asking us to do as the Early Literacy Commission is to endorse this framework. And so that endorsement would be a way, like they could go out and tell people, like, this is a tool that we created with a bunch of people, and the Early Literacy Commission agrees that we got early literacy right, is essentially what our endorsement would do for them. And for me personally, I feel so grateful that they read our report. Like, I'm so happy every time anyone tells us they read our report, because you guys put so much work into it. So for me, it's acknowledging that they read our report and then took our recommendation, and I don't want to say they copied and pasted it, but like they took it and almost word for word used it as the way that they were going to view early literacy in our teacher prep provider program. So they're asking us, it's not from Bessie, but they are asking us if we would vote to endorse this. And again, it would show that we see their commitment to early literacy because we are also committed to early literacy as well. It's someone else who unmuted too.
I did. This is Dejanay.
Oh,
So
sorry.
I just wanted, as we go into making a determination whether or not the commission is going to endorse these indicators, I just want to point out to Ms. Gwynn and someone else's concern about, I think it was Jennifer, about students with special needs. I can appreciate indicator 2.2 that states the extent that the provider ensures that all candidates master the content knowledge and the pedagogy to effectively grow their students, and specifically speaks to students meeting their IEP goals. So I think that sort of give those who have those concerns that I share as well, although there's so much work to do to get them to the IEP process. I think for the purposes of this rubric, it does touch on ensuring that teachers have what they need in order to effectively instruct students with special needs.
Thank you. That was so eloquent. I wish that had been my answer 10 minutes ago, but thank you very much. Great. There's a note here about a typo on page 15. There's an and that should be an A-N that should be an A-N-D. We'll look at it. Ms. Holly did say, from Bessie, did say she's still on listening and appreciates the discussion. So thanks for sticking with us. I know this meeting is not short. Holly said she wishes she had more time to review. She feels like she was given this document day before yesterday and it feels rushed. Okay. Appreciate that comment. Anyone else? I'm looking through, make sure I didn't miss anybody. I think I have them all. There's a question, if the committee endorses, can those who dissent be listed publicly? So we will do a roll call vote. So it'll be clear who voted yes and who did not vote yes. So yes, that will be in the minutes. Libby agrees that she would have liked to have received the document sooner. And guys, I apologize, the final copy wasn't ready until this week. So that's why you didn't get a copy earlier. We will try to get documents to you more quickly in the future. I know when we did the calls last week, we kind of gave an overall, like, this is what we know is coming. But we'll definitely try to push to get those final documents to you faster next time. Holly, why are we pushing for a vote so quickly after for people to review? Because we're not meeting again until July and there's trainings that'll be started. So, so that's why we're doing this at this meeting. Okay, so looks like that is it. Let me make sure no text questions have come in. Okay, so do we have a motion to Let me make sure y'all know I'm bad at this.
Hey, Shanda, I think Dr. McAllister had some chat comments. I'm sorry to interrupt you.
Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't see them come in. Is it possible to delay this vote to allow more time for people to review, but that doesn't prevent the training from occurring? So I know we don't have our next meeting till July. So I think the preferable thing would be if we could vote today.
Shanda?
Yes.
This is Kim. Here's my thought process. As Susanna Craig, Dr. Craig said earlier, a different group came up with and refined using feedback from lots of stakeholders, both university-based and non-university-based, the Department of Ed and the Board of Regents. And so that training is going to be ongoing without the input of the task force unless I'm missing something. And so if people are uncomfortable, I think that it's worthwhile to give them time to review that and to let them process. But again, Sarah may be able to weigh in. I may be missing something.
So, the thing that I would say is this on-site review framework is going to be, the updated framework will be used for reviews beginning in the fall. The training for the on-site review framework will begin for the class measures reviewers in mid-June. And then the first training for providers is at the end of June. And I don't know the possibility of having another meeting in the next week or so, but given that this on-site review framework needs to get out to the providers who will actually be participating in on-site reviews, I think that was the reason that it was brought to this meeting.
So we have a couple of options. I mean, we could do a vote today, or we could do another meeting in June. But we would have to all be able to be back on, because I know virtually it can sometimes be hard to get everybody together. I see a comment. I agree with Dr. Page. Teaching reading does not stop at teacher prep. Districts and principals must continue to provide PD for continuous improvement. Teaching and learning is lifelong. Agreed. I see I moved to delay the vote until we can have more time to review, comment, and revise. I feel like this is just a rubber stamp meeting otherwise. I mean, there would still be a vote. I see I'm ready to vote. I'm ready to vote. And then I see, to clarify, there is no possibility to edit this document. So Tori, it's not our document, so we could suggest edits, but they just like someone could suggest edits to your report when you put it out in January. We can't require someone to edit their document. So I could, if we wanted, we could have a motion, vote to approve it with some recommended revisions, and we could list those. So that is definitely an option if we wanted to do that. But I just want to be clear that there would be recommendations at that point. I don't want to promise that we can edit someone else's document.
But Shanda, this is a rubric that the state is using. So the state is creating it. And if we're part of this commission, then we're having input. Classroom Measures is not creating this rubric. So
but this rubric was put together by there were other work groups that did this. So this isn't something that was just created in-house. So we can give them our recommendations as a voice in that conversation, but we would just be one voice in a conversation that they've had with other groups as well.
But the rubric 2 days ago didn't have writing in it. So,
they had a work group meeting this week, so they were able, that's why we got the final version this week, because they finished it up this week.
Well, 2 days ago, Tori made a suggestion to put writing, as we talked about in our last meeting. and it was not in the original document.
Right.
So I mean, I'm fine with having another meeting if y'all want to have a meeting in June, so that y'all have additional time to review. Holly, I don't understand why we can't edit it. We, like I mentioned, we can suggest edits. We can't require the edits. We can suggest them.
Sarah,
Shanda?
this is Susanna. Let's just say perhaps that we would accept some edits. Would we have to call the work group in back together to make, because they would have the final vote. We don't get the vote. The actual work group who did the work, who wrote the framework, would have the say.
The vote on the
So that
document.
would be that how would that impact your timeline? Again, because our goal here is, I mean, we can certainly choose to not endorse if that is the pleasure of this group, but how would that impact your timeline?
So again, the training for this on-site review framework is going to begin in mid-June for the reviewers, and then teacher preparation providers will have training starting in late June. So I think, you know, that at this point, the options could be that the Early Literacy Commission could choose to endorse now. Again, Chanda, I don't really know the feasibility of bringing the group together for another meeting. You know, I think the other thing that I would say is that it was really important to us to bring this framework to you and for you all to see it, because your report shaped the development of it and specifically shaped that indicator 2.1. And so we tried to take your recommendation and put it in the framework as closely as possible. And so we wanted you all just to have an understanding that that work was happening, that we appreciated your recommendations, that it informed the development of this framework.
That's fair.
Okay. So it sounds like we have two options on the plate here. We can schedule another meeting in June and do the vote then. But I would want like all of us to agree that's what we prefer. Or we could vote now. Again, it's the group's decision. I have no opinion one way or the other. I just want, you know, to be, you know, to coordinate this as well as I can. And I do appreciate, Sarah, you bringing this to us and acknowledging that our work impacted it. I think that's very exciting. So and I don't know the rules of where this is gonna go. So do y'all want to do a quick roll call to decide if we should vote, if we should have an additional meeting in June to vote? Do y'all wanna vote to decide that? Or? Because I know there's some people feel like we should wait, but I don't want, I know everyone hasn't spoken up, and so I want to make sure like that we're doing the will of the group if we're going to schedule another meeting. So
Chanda,
yes.
there isn't currently a motion to vote right now. So essentially there could be, someone can bring a motion to delay the vote to a June meeting. The motion and second was just to have the discussion.
But my concern is if we're going to delay our meeting to vote later, but they already said this is the final version, are they even going to edit if we make suggestions? Like, what is the point of voting later if they're not going to take our suggestions into consideration?
I think it was made clear by Sarah, thank you very much, Sarah, and by Dr. Craig, that this is a final document for which they were asking our endorsement. The consternation, not edits, the consternation that I hear and that I feel in my belly is confidence that the endorsement of the commission, which I appreciate is important, but that 2.1, 2 point whatever, does in fact align with what we said. Shanda said that it does, and I have no reason to doubt, but I didn't get the final document until this morning. So you know, I'm trying to read this little bitty writing to understand it. And so that's my consternation. And I think an endorsement by the commission is as effective today as it would be 30 days from now. Because the providers will know that the commission endorsed said document as prepared by Sarah's committee.
So let's do this. Let's
I don't
see.
know how to get out of this.
So why don't we see if we have a motion first to endorse,
That's
and
okay.
that can maybe guide next steps. Do we have a motion to endorse the on-site review framework?
Yes, she called me yesterday.
Oh, sorry. Miss Craig, Dr. Craig, is that you?
I think she's on a call.
Oh, sorry.
I'm sorry. Yeah, I apologize.
So do we have a motion to endorse?
This is Dejanay. I'll make a motion to
A motion to endorse
the document as prepared.
Okay, so thank you, Dejanay. And so do we have a second?
I second it.
This is Elena, and I second.
Okay, I hear a second. So we have a motion to endorse. Do we have any objections?
You have raised hands.
Our hands, or how do you
Raise
want?
hands. Okay, so that means we're gonna need to have a vote. Lori will call out the names. We'll do a roll call vote, and it will take us a little while. I apologize because of technology. We're not in the room. So we'll go through, and the motion here that we're voting for, yes or no for, is a motion for us to approve this on-site review framework. And so we'll do a roll call vote for that. Lori, are you still on? Can you do that? Oh, maybe we lost her.
Can you
So
clarify?
yes,
Are you voting?
yes means, sorry, real fast. Yes means that you're voting to endorse today. And no means that we don't vote. And it means that you want to delay. So yes means that you vote to endorse today, and a vote of no means that you're voting to delay. And I apologize for checking my phone. Ryan is making sure I'm saying things right. And was there a question? I apologize. Okay. Lori, are you on?
I am. Can you hear me?
Yes. Can you one by one call names so that we can do a roll call vote? So again,
Sure.
you're voting to endorse today, and no means that you want to delay.
Correct. If you're voting yes, you are voting to endorse. And if you vote no, that means you want to delay. Okay. Melissa Anders.
Did you get that?
Nope.
No, I did
You're
not.
muted.
Do you hear me now?
Yes. Do you vote yes or no?
No to delay.
So then to clarify, you're voting yes then?
I'm sorry, yes.
Okay.
Okay. Thank you. Jennifer Barnes.
I vote no.
No. Kim Canizero
Yes.
votes yes. Susanna Craig
Yes.
votes yes. Holly D'Amico
No.
votes no. Tori Flint
No.
votes no. Carolyn Gore
Yes.
votes yes. Deborah Jo Haley
Yes.
votes yes. Gwen Hamilton
Miss Gwen, you're muted.
No.
okay. Gwen votes no. Richard Hartley I know Mr. Hartley was having some audio difficulties. Chanda, do you vote on this, I guess?
I guess I vote yes.
Okay. Ms. Jackson?
Yes.
Yes. Author Geoffrion?
Yes.
Votes yes. Elena Magnum?
Yes.
Votes yes. Kim McAllister?
Yes.
Votes yes. Brandy McNabb?
Yes.
Votes yes. Larkin Page?
No.
Votes no. Dana Perilou?
Yes.
Votes yes. Libby Sonier Neto?
No.
Votes no. And John Weibel? Wasn't sure if he joined yet or not. Okay, and just to make sure, Crystal Aguilar did not join, correct? And did I miss anybody? Okay.
Okay, so y'all know I'm not good with this stuff. I'm texting Ryan to find out what the vote needed to be for us.
We have six votes for no and 12 votes for yes.
Okay, and so Ryan says simple majority. So does it? I don't know what that means. So I guess that means yes, because it's a majority, right? So that means yes is it, which means.
I'm sorry, what was the vote?
The vote was 12 yeses and 6 noes. So then that means that I'm sorry?
And so does that equal 50%?
It's the motion to endorse passes with 6 to 12 vote.
So the motion to endorse passes. And we do have the votes captured, and so we will be sure that the minutes from the meeting reflect each individual person's vote of yes or no. Okay. Y'all need a break to stretch, or I know we have about 30 minutes left. Do y'all want to push forward, or do y'all want to take a break to stretch?
Push forward.
Push forward.
But
Okay.
Shanda, I do want to make sure that the minutes are clear in that the no votes were not a no against endorsement. It was a no vote asking for a delay of the endorsement.
That is correct.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for the clarification.
I'm writing that down to make sure that I have it. Thank you so much, Ms. Gwen. Okay, perfect. So I am going to figure out if I can share my screen again. Okay, so what I'm going to move to now, and I do apologize, since I'm sharing my screen now, it's going to be a little harder for me to watch the chat. So Lori is going to be watching the chat for me, and she'll likely text me because my phone is on the other side and it's easier for me to see. So again, if I look at my phone, it's not because I'm distracted, because that's how I'm tracking the meeting. And again, I will voice over these slides much more than I typically do, because I know some people may be on devices where it's hard to read. So as we mentioned earlier, when we talked about moving into year 2 of our work, the things that we wanted to make sure that as a commission we stayed up to date on were things like high quality instructional materials, high quality PD, high quality teacher prep. So like all of those things that were in the report, making sure that parents receive lots of communication. And so there'll be a section of each of these meetings where I'll provide some updates. I'll have some guests come in to provide updates. And so what I'm going to do to start this is several of you in our calls last week asked questions around how LDA was responding to the reason we haven't met and the reason we're all meeting in this virtual environment, COVID-19. So I want to share a few slides that talk through some of the things that we're doing to ensure that our school systems have the support that they need as they're thinking ahead to 2020, 2021. So the thing I want to make sure that you guys are all aware of is when this happened in March, the response by our school systems was amazing. It's one of those moments in your career where you're just humbled by how much educators love their students and the work that they do. Immediately, you know, as students were getting sent home, teachers packing up books to go with them and immediately staying up late, taking all of their assignments and making sure that they were ready for virtual delivery. And systems really pulled together to support their students and their communities in ways that it was truly amazing to watch. You know, dedicated not only to keeping their students safe, but to ensure that they continue to learn as much as possible with all of the craziness going on in the world around us. So thinking ahead to 2021, last year when we met, I told you guys a little bit about the school planning process and how schools build their strong academic plans each year through a process that we call Super App. And so all of the planning for next year had already happened, and school systems had submitted their Super App kind of in early February. And so what we immediately heard from school systems is like, we've done all of this work, help us make sure that we can do the things that we had planned on doing. So I'm going to talk you through a few things that the department has done to ensure that school systems are able to keep work and keep focused on those strong plans that they had already built. And so we're calling the support that we're providing Strong Start 2020. You may have seen this graphic on some of the new documents we've released. But as schools built their academic plans for 2020, 2021, they already thought about many of the things that you guys called out in your report. They talked about high quality curriculum. They talked about high quality teacher development, and they talked about high quality assessments. So as we're putting out this Strong Start 2020 guidance, all we're doing is providing additional resources to make sure that they can implement the plans that they've already built. And so we released what we're calling the Strong Start 2020 Planning Guide. And so essentially what this is I showed y'all sometime last fall a planning guide that districts use, school systems use when they're completing their Super App. This is essentially a COVID-19 version of that. So it's some guidance that we put together so they can take their strong plans and when they need some additional resources, a little bit different PD, they can indicate what those additional things are. And so if you decide one day you'd like to peruse any of these documents, what you'll see is that the planning priorities for 2020, 2021 are focused on addressing any unfinished learning that might be there because 2019, 2020 ended a little bit differently than usual. And making sure that no matter what 2020, 2021 brings, that we're ready for it. And school systems have really stepped up to the plate here. I know I see a new story in the news every day of plans that systems are making for next year. Already thinking ahead to make sure that we're there ready to help support our students. And so they're thinking about if our brick and mortar buildings close or we're having to modify how we operate in some way, they're already thinking through what that means. And so there's a document with different domains that helps them as they're going through that planning process. And so when I think about your work and the report that you put out in January, the piece of this you're probably most interested in is the instructional materials guidance that we put out and the professional development vendor guidance that we put out. And so in the materials that I sent you, you can click on these links and it'll bring you to those documents. But essentially what we do in the instructional materials guidance is, again, school systems already had selected high quality materials. So they don't need to go out and find another great early literacy program, but they may need whoever their program is from to give them some extra resources to use in case they're teaching online for a period of time instead of in a brick and mortar building. So essentially in that guidance, what we've done is we've reached out to all of our tier 1 vendors and asked them to give us some extra information around the different supports that they're offering in response to COVID-19. And so if you click on those, you can look at the provider and look through the guidance they put together. We did something similar for professional development vendors. So our main tool is still the traditional PD vendor guide. And I know we had the IMR team came in and talked to us about that at one of our meetings last fall. What we've done in this guide is we've reached back out to each of those vendors and asked them, what new trainings are you putting together based on maybe some new needs that school systems are having? So for example, a school system might need somebody who usually coaches them on doing PLCs in person to give them a new offering where instead they're learning how they can do an amazing PLC virtually using Zoom or some other platform. So all of those kind of new things that our PD vendors are offering are in that guide. And again, you can click on those links to see. So those are our updates in terms of how we're supporting our school systems as we're looking towards next year. Brandy, are you still on? I have a colleague who's going to tell us a little bit about a new grant opportunity that we're working through right now. And she's also going to tell us a little bit about the literacy coaches and the literacy coordinators that were included in our report that we released in January. Brandy, are you still?
I am. Thank you, Chanda. Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for having me this afternoon. I was able to attend a meeting in the fall to discuss some things with you back then as you were beginning to peruse all of the evidence and things that we have to be able to create your goals and your recommendations. So thank you for having me again. And I really want to commend you for the job that you were able to come up with this report. It's fantastic. And I'm thrilled to say that I've had a lot of actionable steps and things that I'm taking towards making some of these things come to life. So great work. And I know that we'll have continued work together. One thing that I wanted to give you an update on today is a new federal grant opportunity. It's called Comprehensive Literacy State Development Grant. So here I've just provided you with an overview around the grant priorities and kind of give you a little bit of information around that. We want you to know that this is a continuing grant from our Comprehensive Literacy State Development that we did receive last year. So this is just moving on a little bit further with that. Of course, we definitely want everyone to continue using those evidence-based strategies to improve outcomes for all of our disadvantaged children, birth all the way to grade 12. This particular grant, they're only going to be awarding 4 to 8 for the states who apply. And it looks around to be about 84 million total is what is available for all awards put together. Just like all of the other federal grants that we have written and have awarded, or some of them, I guess I should say, this will be potentially a 5-year grant where 95% of the funds are actually flowed directly through the school systems. So this is particularly a fantastic thing that they're able to make those decisions based off of the recommendations and the high quality materials that we do have and provided for them. They're able to purchase anything that they need based off of those, as well as all of the professional development for their teachers and other people who work within the schools. We also have our current Circle and CLSD grant, as I said, which target high need schools. And so that one was actually focused on our schools who are labeled as CIR, UIR schools, and focused on high quality curriculum and PD. So this one is very similar. We are contemplating writing that for UIN schools and really having the approach of working with state coordinators to be able to provide that strong structure for school systems to be able to support teachers in all the ways that we know that they need them. This particular grant is around high poverty schools, and what we're wanting to ultimately do is to have this high poverty become a high performing model of the evidence and how we're really looking at the evidence-based strategies, which are the priorities within this grant. And included in those are family literacy coaching, excellence in at least one evidence-based, there's a comment, sorry. Talking about literacy coaching, and then also around the social emotional needs of our disadvantaged youth, especially in the world of which we're living in right now, and also around intervention for students who struggle with reading, along with teaching the foundations, and we know how important that is. Do y'all have any questions around the grant? This is a very quick turnaround. We are actually in the process of completing this right now. They only gave us a small window to get this done. So the team has been working very hard to make sure that we have all the appropriate things within the grants along with the requirements.
I notice it says 95% flow through school systems and the other 5 to...
The other 5% actually stays with us here at the department. And so we use that for potential trainings that we would offer and pay for teachers or coaches or coordinators, along with some other expenditures that we would have within the state. But that's a very small amount, as you would consider just a 5%.
So if you're a special school outside of a traditional school system, you wouldn't qualify?
Yes, ma'am, they can still qualify.
Okay, thanks.
You're welcome. Any other questions? This is very exciting. We've been able to provide a lot to the schools who are most in need for our most disadvantaged students. Not only that, but the ones living in poverty, as well as students with disabilities and our EL students. So we're definitely using this money to meet the needs of all students across Louisiana.
Hey, Brandy, before you go to the next slide real fast, I have a clarification that I want to make sure, and I'm doing this now in case people end up dropping off, because I know we're getting close to time. So Ryan said that there was a little bit of confusion as we voted, and so he wants me to clarify. He said that we have to say that, and so again, this is about our endorsement of the on-site review framework. He said that we're voting on it, and a yes vote is going to mean that you vote to endorse, and a no vote is going to mean that you're voting not to endorse. So he wants us to clarify that with that particular vote, that a no won't mean to delay. Like we would have to do a separate motion for that. So just to make sure that we're super clear and that the record accurately reflects our votes, we're going to go ahead and do a revote to make sure that we're super clear. So again, we're going back to the on-site review framework.
And can I ask, do you get a vote that's counted, or do you not?
I get a vote that counts, yes.
Okay, because I thought you had said you didn't get a vote.
No, I get a vote. So again, we're gonna do a vote.
Or should we have a motion to delay? Because the vote was confusing whether we were endorsing or delaying.
Right, so do I have a motion, and we'll go back from the beginning. Do we have a motion to approve the on-site review framework?
My motion stands to approve the framework as submitted.
Okay, and do we have a second?
Well, I thought someone just asked before you did that to have a motion to delay. Are we not doing that?
Well, first we're going to go back to the original motion and see if we have a motion and a second and vote. And then after that, if the vote is no and we want to delay or whatever, we can do that. But I want to go back and make sure.
That's confusing. We're going to vote to endorse or not endorse, but then the vote to delay would come after that vote?
Yeah, that doesn't
make sense.
So to make it clear, I think this is the appropriate place. I'll make a substitute motion to delay.
Okay, so let's.
There you go, Ms. Wynn, thanks.
Okay, so Ms. Gwen is gonna do a substitute motion. So with the substitute motion, what we're saying is we would delay and we would have a meeting in June then to do this.
Yes.
And then after that, we can do the original motion if we need to after. I apologize for the confusion here with the voting.
No, that's okay.
So we have a vote then, we have a substitute motion to delay.
But
Do we have a second?
it has to have a second. It has to have a second.
Do we have a second?
This is Libby. I second that.
Okay. So then, Lori, can you do our roll call vote on this?
I think we have to ask for any opposition here. Is that correct?
Oh, sorry. Do we have any opposition? Any opposition to delaying?
Yes. I mean, I'm going to vote no. This has gotten very confusing.
It is.
So,
The opposition is to the motion, not to the vote.
okay. Okay.
Right. There's a substitute motion to delay. I apologize for the confusion, guys. I think this is, we're not face to face, but I think this complicates things. So there's a substitute motion to delay this to another meeting that we would have in June. There's a motion, there's a second, there's opposition. So let's do a roll call vote. So if you a vote of yes here means you want to delay, a vote of no means you do not want to delay. Lori, can you bring us through?
Yes, that's fine. I just want to clarify. A vote of yes is to delay this, and a vote of no is to not delay. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay. Melissa Anders.
Okay, can you hear me?
I can now.
Okay. I vote to delay.
Okay, so if you vote to delay, then you're voting yes.
Yes.
Jennifer Barnes.
Yes.
Yes. Kim Canizero.
No.
Votes no. Susanna Craig.
No.
Votes no. Holly D'Amico.
Yes.
Votes yes. Tori Flint.
Yes.
Votes yes. Carolyn Gore.
No.
Votes no. Deborah Jo Haley.
Out of respect for those who need more time, I vote yes.
Votes yes. Richard Hartley. Chanda Johnson. Can you hear me?
I vote no. Can y'all hear me?
I can now. Votes no. Dejanay Clark Jackson.
No.
Votes no. Arthur Joffrion.
Abstain due to an issue in a meeting here. Sorry.
Okay, abstaining from the vote. Elena Magnum. Elena, can you hear me? Okay, I'm going to go to Kim McAllister.
No.
Votes no. Brandy McNabb. Brandy. Okay, going to Larkin Page.
Yes.
Votes yes. Dana Perilou.
Yes.
Votes yes. Libby Sonia Neto.
Yes.
Votes yes. John Weibel. Okay.
I think some people dropped off. That's what I was worried about.
Yep. Did I fail? Did anybody not hear me call their name?
Gwen Hamilton.
Gwen Hamilton.
Yes.
votes yes.
Okay. And I think I missed some of the votes.
Elena Mangum says she's on the call. She's not sure why she isn't heard.
Oh, so she's trying to speak. I don't know how we handle that if she.
Yeah, how do we handle that?
Can you unmute her on your end, whoever has control over the call?
Let me try.
Or Shanda, she can write in the chat.
Her vote. Mhm.
Unless she's on her phone and not.
Chanda, do you know the phone number?
It's the 206, the 318-206.
Okay, I can try to unmute.
Okay, thank you.
Miss Mangum?
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes. Did you hear the conversation leading up to this point, the substitute motion?
I did, and
Okay.
I tried to vote. You guys didn't hear me, so I vote no.
Okay, vote no.
Thank you.
You're welcome. We're glad we were able to get you. Okay, 1, 2. I have 9 yes, 7 no.
That's what I got. So what we'll do then is
The substitute motion fails, so you therefore go back to the original motion.
If the vote fails, we have to vote on the original motion to endorse. So then we would have to go for a vote for yes is to endorse.
And no, not. Correct.
And no is to just completely not endorse, right?
Correct. That's correct.
To delay that vote, right? So we don't vote.
motion passed.
Yes, the vote we just took was 7-9, which means it passed to delay.
So the motion to delay passed.
The motion passed.
So then we will delay the vote on this. How long do you guys want to review?
Shanda, the substitute motion failed.
Substitute motion failed. My misunderstanding.
Yeah, I thought it failed. I thought that was the original call.
I thought you just said it passed.
I thought the vote was 9 yes, 7 no.
You still need majority.
It
Oh,
was
okay.
Majority.
Yeah.
That's a majority.
Right.
I'm confused.
Ryan, are you on? Yeah, Ryan said it passed. So then.
Can you guys hear me?
Yes.
We can hear you.
So if we had, how many, we had 9 yays, 7 nays, and 1 abstention.
Correct.
So we had 17 votes cast.
Yeah. 16
9
votes.
of which voted, well, and 1 abstention. So we had 17 people vote yay, nay, or a majority of those voting, which constituted a quorum of the group, voted to move the motion forward. So the motion actually passed. You needed at least a majority of those casting the vote to vote in favor of the motion, which if we had 17 votes, 9 had to vote for the motion. And that's what we had.
And here
And the motion was to delay, so that means that motion passed, so that means we delay the vote, is that correct?
That's right. I mean, you've got some options. I don't necessarily think you have to have another meeting. Someone can make a motion to, another substitute motion to endorse with certain recommendations, or we can just schedule another meeting. But we won't be able to endorse this unless this group either allows the department to make some revisions to the document, or if this group comes together again in a week or two to endorse it, he would endorse it. So we would, ideally, in that motion, we would have a date, some future date, whether it's...
Can't hear.
So it sounds like Ryan is saying that we could do a motion and suggest some edits, or we could decide to get back together in a week or two and revisit. So what do you guys prefer?
I think the vote was clear that we wanted more time to review, not to endorse something.
Okay.
Right, and so Shanda, let me just jump in. And so Shanda has asked everyone about how much time do you need to review? Because the document, again, and I'll just stress, this document was created by a different group of people.
Right.
So edits and things like that are not necessarily going to happen. So how much time do you need to review this document? And we can, again, endorse or not endorse, and it makes no difference to me which way we choose to go. But Shanda's asked how much time, for those of you who wanted to delay, how much time do you think you need so that we can schedule a meeting to have our discussion, our vote then?
So Dr. Craig, since I made the motion, and the motion was to delay the vote on endorsement, it was not edits, because it was made clear that this document has been published and asking for our endorsement.
Exactly.
So I would recommend that we vote to endorse or not endorse in 10 days.
10 days. Thank you. I think we were just waiting for a time. So that's great. Thank you, Ms. Anderson.
And that's a starting point. That's my 2 weeks to me is.
Thank you.
Appreciate that, Ms. Quinn. Okay, so 10 days sound good, and I can get another Zoom set up and we can all come back?
Can I clarify a point here?
Yes, ma'am.
So I think I'm understanding from what Ryan's comments were, although they were a little hard to hear, that one of our options is to potentially, in 10 days' time, endorse with recommendations. Is that a correct understanding?
I like Robert's Rules of Order, that is an option. But again, to Dr. Craig's point, like it would be us saying things that like it's not ours to actually go do those edits. So
correct. I understand that, but it is our prerogative to suggest what they would consider as recommendations along with an endorsement. Did I understand that correctly?
Yes, that's an option. And I mean, if we wanted to, we could take that option today as well.
I think given the discussion and the concerns, that to have at least a time to complete a review and to submit recommendations to go with a potential endorsement for the group to review within that 10 days time.
So you're asking for an opportunity to submit revisions before the 10 days. And then, I mean,
well, I'm not calling them revisions because it's my understanding we can't revise the document.
Right, it would be recommendations, so they would be like suggestions. Okay.
That would be attached to a potential endorsement.
Okay.
But for the committee to review prior to.
Yes. Yes.
Okay. So what if then I send a follow-up email and I give everyone a date by which to send me any recommendations, which would then be suggestions, and then I can get those out to the whole group before our next meeting. And in the email, I'll also send, so I'll send you a date to send me your recommendation, and then the date of our next meeting. And then before that next meeting, I can share with the group what everybody's recommendations are. And then at that next meeting, we could decide if we wanted, if someone wanted, oh, sorry.
No, to vote as a commission to endorse.
Right. We could decide at that point if someone wanted to make a motion to endorse as is, or someone wanted to make a motion to endorse with these recommendations. Does that sound good to everyone? Trying to make sure I capture everything.
Yeah, do I have an official motion though for the next meeting in 10 days?
Is that what Gwen suggested?
What day that is? Like in Monday.
Let me grab my calendar.
Yeah, I don't think you need a motion
We have to
since
make
the motion passed to delay. We're just now trying to schedule the next meeting.
right, because we've never voted on our meeting dates.
Yeah, there's no motion necessary for meeting date.
You want to do it like June 8th, 11 days away?
June 8th work.
Yeah, in the afternoon, if that's okay.
I think Sarah can do the afternoon. Sarah, what's the latest you could do on that day? Can you still hear us? You can text me back.
Yeah, sorry. Let me try to check my calendar. And I don't know if you all, let's see here. I'm unavailable starting at 2 p.m. on the 8th.
So what if we did on the 8th, 12 to 2? Does that work for everybody? I can send out a Zoom.
I'm teaching afternoon classes from 1:30 to 3:30 starting on the 8th. But if it's possible to proxy vote or have some mechanism.
Oh, I would hate for you.
But I'm not the reason you're rescheduling a meeting time.
What if we did 10 to 12? Would that, well, no, that still doesn't work for you. I don't think we'll need 2 hours. I mean, it feels like an hour will probably work since we'll have just one topic. What if, but I want to make sure we have plenty of time. What if we did 10 to 11:30 on June 8th?
I can't do that. This is Libby.
Oh.
Yeah, 10 to 11 works for me.
Does the 9th work better for people?
Yes.
The 9th works better for me. I'm unavailable on the 8th.
Okay. So what about 10 to 11:30 on the 9th? Does that work for people?
Yes.
Works for me.
Yeah, that sounds
Yes.
great.
Perfect. And so I'll send a follow-up email with that information. So then if we're doing that on the 9th, then any recommendations that you would like to make, if you can get them to me by, let's say the 3rd, next Wednesday.
I also see in the chat box that said we can make amendments, which are requirements for our endorsement. So we can make recommendations, suggestions, or amendments, which would be requirements for our endorsement.
So whichever one you prefer, when you give your recommendations, you would just have to make note of that as, as being a opponent.
What date did you say you wanted those by? Sorry.
June 3rd by, let's just say end of business. And I'll send this a follow-up email, guys. Okay, and I appreciate everyone digging into this. We all know all of the back and forth to get our report final. So appreciate everyone digging here into this important work. I do want to double check if we have any public comments. I don't think we did.
Chanda, there are no comments in the inbox. And I have not seen any come through the chat. Would be happy for you to double check me or Lori.
Okay, looks good. I don't see any more. Okay, well, thank you guys. As always, I appreciate your passion for this work and your commitment to early literacy. Our school system, students and our teachers are better for it. Looking forward to continuing this conversation. If you want to hop on the phone with me or with Sarah at any point before either the 3rd or the 9th, please let me know and I can get those meetings set up. And I really appreciate your time today. Hold on though, because I know we're not done what we have to do. We had a couple of slides that we didn't get to. Am I still sharing my screen? I think so. That we didn't get to go through that are in your deck. If you have any questions, let me know. We can always address them. I don't know why that just did that. Brandy had an update on the planning that we're doing for literacy coaching and for our literacy coordinators. So I'll be prepared to voice over those slides at the next meeting. I'm aware that we're over time and I want to be respectful of time. We didn't have any public comment, so our next scheduled meeting was supposed to be July 13th. So we'll still plan on doing that. This other meeting will be just in addition to that. And we'll continue to provide updates on all of those topics. But we do need a motion to adjourn the meeting in a second.
So moved.
Thank you, Ms. Quinn.
A second.
Thank you very much. And who is the second from? I'm sorry, I couldn't see.
Dejanay.
Okay, thank you very much. I appreciate your time today. As always, guys, and if there's anything I can do, let me know.
In case anybody's watching, does anyone object? You have to ask for objection to the motion to adjourn.
Any objections to adjourning? Sorry about that. I assume since we were over, everybody's ready to go. Thanks, Ms. Quinn. Any objections? Awesome. Okay, thanks. Okay, everybody, y'all have a lovely afternoon. Reach out to me. Y'all have my cell phone number, anything, and we'll all talk soon. Thanks, guys.
Thank you.